Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing Goo. Aha, it's our regular roundup of every test match out here in Australia in the Ashes, and you will see that we are in sunny and beautiful Queensland, the Sunshine State. Brisbane behind us, rather feeble circular wheel thing that's about half the size of the real London one, but nonetheless, it's a decent enough place to be watching cricket. We have just seen 5 enthralling days of the Gabbatoir, well, 4 days and an hour, well, 3 days, 1 session and an hour and a bit of enthralling cricket, and after that, a bit of a damp squib, Isha.
Yeah, it really was. 3 days where it was incredible viewing, wasn't it? I mean, 3 days of back and forth, and so many different interesting passages of play, with the quick bowlers at one stage to the spinner, and then back to the batters and having to cope with the quick firing pace of Australia. But yeah, it was a fantastic. Yeah, all right, mate. Did you intro Adam? By the way?
I didn't intro Adam. No, he is the Australian correspondent of Wisden, Wisden.com, and Wisden Cricket Monthly. And we've got him on, I suppose, as a penance to ourselves. So we sort of talked about this, didn't we, Isha, and said, you know, it'd be better if we could get someone like, say, Lawrence Booth or a quiet, angry-sounding Englishman. But we've gone with a smug, grinning Adam Collins, whose fast bowlers have done the job in this game, as Isha has alluded to. What do you make of it?
I kind of wish they didn't. I thought we were on track to it. We're trending towards a classic for the first couple of days. It looks like it was one of those nip and tuck test matches that could go deep into the sort of 5th day or something like that. But I feel a bit let down by the way that England played in the back half of the 3rd day, which meant that the game was sort of fait accompli there.
That's a bit harsh. I mean, by back half of the 3rd day, you're really meaning 20 minutes before tea.
I'm really talking about Johnny Bairstow 3 minutes before tea.
Yeah. Well, you were furious at that point because you, like a lot of scribblers and broadcasters, I mean, the broadcasters on Triple M, for whom Isha is working, which is a radio station out here in Australia, as well as a number of you journalists, get paid by the day.
You're not wrong. That's why I was talking through my hip pocket. I didn't want to see the test match finish in 4 days. Thankfully it didn't, so I get paid for today. But parking that to one side, I'd have thought that dismissal meant that there was no way they were going to set Australia at a total which was going to be anything other than a doddle. Had they got through to 200 or 230 ahead or something like that, the ghosts of Christmas past could haunt Australia, those narrow run chases where they've fell short over the last 25 years. Now, that's not really been a thing in recent years, but we still have this mythology around or narrow chases in Australia, which just pervade 4th innings consideration. So they missed the trick there, England. Had they just batted through, that might have put that sort of pressure back onto the host, but it didn't instead.
There were 3 things for me. Steve Smith 100, absolutely ridiculous 100, considering what he was faced with. England threw absolutely everything at him, loads of different plans. I love the thrust and the duck underneath all the bouncers. It's like Matrix style, wasn't it,
right.
Smith?
Well, I'm with you there. What I loved was the number of different plans and the way that every plan was designed to get Smith to play a particular shot, which he denied himself. And then they moved to a different plan, and then he could play the previous shot. And time after time after time, you know, if you compare it with Dawid Malan, I know we're getting quite specific here, but Dawid Malan, when England were 246 for 4, suddenly Australia tried a new plan. Round the wicket comes Stark, bangs it into the pitch. We were on commentary in our respective boxes, and I bet we were saying the same thing, which is, if England had got any sense, they'll leave it. Stark can only bowl 5 overs at most. Leave it, make him burn himself out. Instead, Malan fell for the sucker punch, whereas what Steve Smith did in 7-8 hours, it felt like a year. It was self-denial. And England's batsmen have surely got to show more of that, haven't they, Adam?
Yeah, well, we talk about Malan. They went far away from seeing off Stark. That was into his 4th over of his spell after they went around the wicket and upstairs, and he did a really good job to deny himself as well. And when he did play those pull shots early in the spell, they were very controlled until the big heave-hoers got the fat top edge. As for Smith, normally when someone makes a test 100, you talk about the shots they did play, whereas with Smith, it was all the focus was on the shots, as you said, Daniel, that he denied himself, and that's what made it such a great 100. I described it as his twin masterpieces of 2017 Pune back in February, which was in the most aggravated scenario you can imagine. The pitch was spinning the ball, turning square throughout that innings where he was dropped several times, but to have that persistence, he described it as his best innings yet, and that's got to sit side by side, because Smith made 21 test hundreds and some glorious innings, but this was due to what he didn't do and I think that's why he rates it so highly. And of course, having the opportunity to win a Test match as skipper in a home Ashes for the first time is not for nothing either.
21 Test hundreds and an average as captain of 71, which is utterly ridiculous for the Australian captain. But 2 for me was too many England players getting to 40, 50, and then getting out, and 3 getting blown away by the likes of Stark, Cummins, and that's going to happen continuously throughout the series.
This is the thing, you're talking big picture here. The team that loses always says that they're going to rub of the green, and England have got a point here. Vince run out on 83 by a truly brilliant piece of fielding from Nathan Lyon. 9 times out of 10, that ball's not sitting up nicely into his hand, and he's not throwing down those stumps. Moeen Ali getting out by a whisker, stumped by a fat line, huge fat crease. 9 times out of 10, that's not happening. Stuart Broad, the thinnest of thin edges yesterday. 9 times out of 10, it's just missing.
Yeah.
But the big picture is the stuff that we're going to have to take away from this, and the themes that are going to keep coming back are surely how are England going to cope with what is a clear and present danger. It's a plan that's going to happen in every Test match. The moment the 7th wicket goes down, Broad, whoever is at number 10, because we'll come on to that in a minute, and Jimmy Anderson is going to face a barrage of bouncers from 3 of the quickest bowlers. And just to say on this, I had an hour, the most scintillating hour of watching cricket in my life, I think. It was the end of the 3rd day when Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood and Lyon were throwing everything at England. They're throwing everything at Stoneman. He withstood it, got one of the great 19 not outs, but it's worth nothing if at the end of it you're going to get blown away by it on the next day. Now, this is going to happen over and over again.
Or get out to spin.
Or get out.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
Get out to spin.
This is the conversation starter, really, I think, is about Nathan Lyon. Mitchell Stark last night spoke about how crucial he was. Lyon's not always been a bowler you can depend on. To be blunt, a year ago he was far from that. He wasn't consistent at all. He wasn't able to hold down an end. He was leaking tons of runs. Now, on that first day, he was so frugal. He spun the ball so prolifically from the get-go. Then in the second innings, he's got an incredible record against left-handers. And this year alone, he's picked up his wickets against left-handers at an average of 13, which England's got 4 of 6 in the top order who are left-handers, which gives a comparative advantage to the Australian off-spinner. And because he's so dependable at the moment, giving it such a rip, it does mean that Stark and Hazelwood and Cummins can have repeat spells for 3 or 4 overs a pop from one end and let Lyon pretty much set and forget from the end he's bowling from. And that's going to be something that I think can be the glue in this attack that sets them up to do what you're talking about and punish them when they get the quicks on.
But England need to play with a bit more intent against Nathan Lyon. Exactly what Moeen Ali and Joe Root were doing on the 4th day. Until, unfortunately, Root was dismissed by a brilliant delivery from Hazelwood. But yeah, it's
second time in a match that happened. Second time in a match. And just briefly on this, is there a concern for Root? Because Root has never had a single problem, not one specific thing that you would say he's going to get out every time. You would think back to, say, Tom Wesley, we think also James Vince would say, there's a plan, you do that, you execute it, they'll nick off, or he'll play around the front pad. Now, Joe Root, through his career, has faced challenges, he's overcome them. Twice in this match he got almost identical balls, albeit at great pace from 2 fabulous bowlers. Do you think he's going to overcome that? Is he going to be fine by Adelaide, or are we going to see a recurring theme of Root falling over LBW?
Can I give you a cracking statistic I saw yesterday from our friends at CricViz? They found out that Joe Root has faced 124 balls since the start of last year, 2016, on the stumps. He's averaged 15 when the balls are on the stumps in that 124 deliveries. You cast back before that, earlier in his career, he averaged over 100. So in the last, I guess it's 20 months, or 22 months rather, despite his prolific numbers, there is a small chink in the armour, and that's played out by the numbers. It's that when you attack the stumps with Root, he seems to be slightly vulnerable, and we've seen him get 2 very good deliveries. The one from Cummins, he described it as a 1 in 100 delivery to move that much and to hit in line and still be hitting the stumps. It doesn't happen very often for a bowler at that pace as well. 145 clicks that delivery was, and in the second innings, the Hazelwood delivery was nearly as good as that again. So you can be sure of one thing: the Australians will be well aware of that. That Root, at this stage of his career, seems, for whatever reason, he's a genius, he's a boy wonder, but he seems to be vulnerable when you bowl it on the stumps at pace.
Right, well, what we've got, I think, is a pattern developing that England's not quite so quick bowlers are going to have to rely, or they're going to continue to rely, on bowling English-style ways, on perhaps pitches that may not suit them. Brisbane certainly didn't suit the way they were going to bowl. Adelaide may be different, we'll come on to that shortly. We've also seen that Australia are going to use very, very obvious, blunt tactics, I've got to say. There's nothing subtle about it. This is going to happen. Another thing the Australians are going to do is they're going to try and get into the heads of the English, and they did that with Johnny Bairstow. We've had Johnny Bairstow gate. I want to touch on it very quickly. Johnny Bairstow accused of headbutting Cameron Bancroft. It all came about by comments made on the stump cam. Johnny Bairstow's come back and said, well, you know, this is, or at least it's been intimated, this is how Johnny Bairstow greets people. From now on, Johnny Bairstow is going to have to greet everybody on this tour with a friendly headbutt in order to maintain this crazy fiction. What do you make of this madness? And what's going to be the next thing that the Australians are going to ramp up and try to make out that the English team is comprised of dangerous, crazed thugs?
I don't think it's that bad. I usually greet men by kicking them in the balls.
Yes, well, there are many men who can testify to that.
What a debut from Cameron Bancroft, though, not just what he did on the field, but that media conference he gave talking about the headbutt was one of the greats. I mean, you mentioned the greeting of the headbutt, the way in which he said that he's got the biggest head in the West Australian side, and they've measured it, and therefore it's all good. And they had a lovely conversation afterwards. I just think that's
very Donald Trump, isn't it? I've got a great head, I've got a big head, I've got one of the larger heads, with the great heads in world cricket.
But it just highlights how much everything is amplified in an Ashes series. You're under the scanner, everything's magnified, any little tiny thing that crops up. And I think Trevor Bayliss is getting a little bit annoyed with all these just distractions around the group at the moment. They just need to focus on the job in hand, which is out in the middle.
Right, Adelaide's coming up, starts on Saturday, day-night, totally different conditions. Any changes for either side? Start with you, Adam.
Watch for Chet Sayers. He was 13th man in this match, but he was in the squad specifically for the Adelaide match. He's a pink ball specialist, you could say, given how well he's bowled under lights in Sheffield Shield cricket. He bowls extremely well at the Adelaide Oval, and the pitch will have grass on it. The last two times we've had test matches at Adelaide under lights, they've left a lot of grass cover on top to suit the ball, and also that favourite seam bowling in Sayers is the best in the business in this country at making the ball talk off a length. So expect to see them consider him in favour of Pat Cummins, who they might rest in order to keep him through a 5-test series. Of course, he's been so injury prone over his career so far.
Isha, do you expect to see a very different test match at Adelaide?
Yeah, absolutely. Pink ball test, it will move around, will be very dependent on the time of day that everyone is bowling and batting.
Yep.
The positive for England is Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad looked at their best at Brisbane. While they didn't get help too much from the conditions, they will get a lot of assistance in Adelaide, especially with the pink ball. So, and I also think that Chris Wokes, while it was a relatively benign pitch at Brisbane, didn't help him too much. I think he will come good at Adelaide and he will fight back. He's been fairly reliable for England over the last couple of years, so I expect him to cause some problems. One change possibly.
Overton maybe for Ball?
Overton maybe for Ball.
I'd bring in Paul Collingwood for Jake Ball. I'm the only man who would do that. It's going to be a thriller. It needs to be a thriller as well in order to ignite the series, get it back to 1-1. I would say it's been a rare Ashes Test match in that it was really tight for 3.5 days for the last couple of series. There have been close series, but there have been very few close Test matches. This was a close Test match, weirdly, that Australia won by 10 wickets. Recording, incidentally, the highest ever score by a side that's won a match by 10 wickets. The HP Source Timer says we have reached the end of Brisbane. We move from here to Adelaide. I can't wait. We'll be back at the end of that Test match next Wednesday, a week on Wednesday. Until then, from Adam Collins and Isha Guha, Daniel Norcross on Knowing Me, Knowing You. Aha, good night.